When you first quit consuming cannabis, there's going to be 10 things that you're going to want to avoid, because not avoiding these things will make quitting cannabis 1,000 times harder and may eventually result in a return to substance use. And I say this as someone who personally struggled with a cannabis substance use disorder for several years of my life, and these are mistakes that I made on my own journey to stopping the consumption of cannabis. There are also mistakes that I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of people that we've worked with over the years helping them quit. And you can easily avoid these mistakes if you're aware of them. Even though these 10 things are going to be super helpful, I want you to please keep in mind the most important thing when it comes to quitting any substance is going to be rooted in the perceived value in your perception of that drug consumption and the benefits that you believe you do or do not get from consuming that drug. And that's really something that we help people with using our expedited perception realignment techniques. If you're new here, my name's Dr. Frank, and we have a science-backed method that has a 98% client success rate at helping people quit nicotine and cannabis in as little as 48 hours. This method is designed for high-performance individuals and high-level professionals. We do it privately, we do it comfortably, we do it without disrupting your public life and image, and we can do it without relapse. I put a link in the video description in the pinned comment where you can learn more. When you quit a substance like cannabis, presumably you're stopping because you want to feel better physically, you want to do better financially, maybe you want stronger relationships, maybe it's negatively impacted your mental health. These are things that people often hope to improve by stopping the consumption of cannabis. But I like to point out that those categories of life aren't only impacted by drug consumption. Other choices that you make, other behaviors that you partake in can negatively impact your motivation, your confidence, your mental clarity, even after you've stopped the consumption of cannabis. So we're going to air out what those things are, and I'm going to provide you with alternatives to each of those behaviors to help you along the way. Now, the first thing I would tell you about quitting cannabis is don't go telling the whole world that you quit. Maybe you want to tell a select few individuals, but I don't recommend recovering out loud, because what's going to wind up happening is you're going to start getting input from people who A, don't know what they're talking about, B, who are trying to be helpful but just become super annoying, or C, people who truly want the best for you but have no idea how to actually support you, or D, you're going to get input from people who don't want to see you stop. This could be friends, it could be family, whatever it may be. So I recommend when you first quit, don't make the mistake of announcing it to everyone, because you're going to start getting input from a bunch of people and you're going to start getting a bunch of different conflicting opinions and points of views, and it's not going to do you any good. It's like imagine you're trying to make a pot of soup in the kitchen and there's 15 cooks in the kitchen all telling you how to make the same soup, but they all have different ingredient lists. It becomes confusing, it becomes overwhelming, and it's a disservice. So I tell people this is something that you probably want to keep to yourself or a select few individuals in your life. Thing number 2 you're going to want to avoid is unintentionally depriving yourself from your own autonomy, from your own ability to make choices. We work with lots of professionals here: doctors, attorneys, lawyers, real estate professionals, investors. You guys are grown adults who are able to make rational decisions for yourselves. And so many times I'll have people call me and I'll ask them about their previous quit attempts, and they'll say, yes, I gave my credit card to my wife, I got rid of all my cash, I put my license in a lockbox so I couldn't go to a dispensary and purchase cannabis. And I tell people all the time, you shouldn't have to feel like you need to do that if you're quitting properly. You shouldn't have to use hardly any willpower at all once we get that perception of your drug consumption realigned. If you're going into quitting and you're feeling like you have to put all of your stuff into a lockbox or give your sources of income and finances to someone else because you're out of control, what you're actually doing is creating your quit from a place of deprivation, and you're robbing yourself of the most important thing when it comes to stopping a substance: your autonomy and your own ability to make rational choices. I was offered a very large sum of money in 2 different scenarios on this channel. One scenario was there was a sponsor that wanted me to promote lock boxes that people could put their cannabis in or their cigarettes in and stuff like that. And they wanted me to do sponsored videos about it. I also had a company reach out to me and said they would white label me products that involved lock boxes and other things like that I could promote and sell on my channel for profit. And in both instances, I told these people it was a conflict of interest, because the last thing I would want to do for a person is rob them of their own ability to make a choice. And I would never want someone to go into quitting feeling like they're depriving themselves of something. So don't make that mistake. If you're doing that, something's wrong with the mindset. Mistake number 3, and I see this all the time among high-level professionals and high-performance people, they're trying to rebuild Rome in a day. So if you've struggled with cannabis substance use for a long period of time, there's a chance that it's negatively impacted some aspects of your life. Maybe your finances, maybe your career, maybe your relationships, maybe your physical health and your mental health, maybe your physical appearance, your body, your self-care. And a lot of people will quit and they'll come up with these really extreme goals. I'm gonna quit consuming cannabis, I'm gonna go to the gym 5 days a week, I'm gonna radically change my diet, we're gonna start marriage counseling tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And I tell people, you're going through detox, you're going through withdrawal. Pick one thing and get really good at that one thing. In this case, that one thing is not consuming cannabis. Once we're on a solid foundation of that, then we can start to build the other pillars. We can start to build the other foundational aspects of a person's life, which is usually focused on relationships, career, physical health, and mental health, and in some instances, faith practice, depending on the individual. But pick one thing, start with that, get really good at it, then worry about changing everything else. Because if you can't get good at one thing, chances are you're just going to make the same mistakes over and over again in everything else. The same thing applies to business, right? I know when I started as a young entrepreneur, I had shiny object syndrome. I'd have one business, then another one, then another one, then another one. And I would keep switching businesses because I like, well, this business has this problem and it's not making me enough money, or the market's not right, or whatever it is. That wasn't the case. I didn't take the time to get good at one thing, because the same problems that first business had, all my subsequent businesses had as well, until I started to address it and fix it. Tip number 4, stop scrolling, or at least avoid scrolling on your phone too much, especially when it comes to short format content. And I know this is a hard thing to overcome, especially if you are going through detox and withdrawal, right? It's pretty easy just to sit there and scroll on your phone mindlessly. But that intense short format content really does mess with dopamine. It really can lead to doom scrolling and other undesirable things that we see online. And it's only going to make you feel crappier. I recently had this conversation with a client that recently enrolled with us who lives in Australia, and they were going through Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome and some very, very intense withdrawal symptoms. And they were talking to me about how they have some family members that would really kind of trigger them when they're going through detox, because the family's reaching out and asking, how are you doing? Are you okay? What can we do for you? And even though they're trying to be helpful, it turns out to be more of an annoyance than anything. And I told this person, I said, look, over the next few days, put your phone on silent, right? I always have my notifications muted, unless it's on my business phone and it's, we have clients going through detox. But I always have my personal phone muted or on, sleep mode. I always have all my notifications for all my apps turned off, because I just don't want that level of stimulation. And it's something that you should be looking to avoid when you first quit cannabis. Now, I'm not against a person going on their phone a little bit, getting some of that dopamine as they're detoxing, but I would recommend watching very benign content, right? Go on YouTube and watch videos about watches and how watches are made. Go on YouTube and watch fishing videos or nature videos or hiking videos or travel videos. Long format, slower paced content is going to be better off than short format stuff. Even a movie on Netflix that you enjoy would be a good idea. but please avoid doom scrolling and avoid too much screen time. I had another client that we were working with, high-level investor who recently quit using cannabis and nicotine. And this individual contacted me and they were like, I just don't know what it is. I'm feeling so much better with my energy, like everything is better. But that focus at work just doesn't seem to be coming back yet. And on the call with them, I said, okay, let's compare our screen time. And I said to this person, remember, I'm the guy who creates social media content for a living, right? You're not. He was clocking like 10 plus hours a day of screen time. And I said to him, no wonder why you can't focus. And then we reframed it as, congratulations on quitting cannabis and nicotine, and that we were now able to identify what a big problem this thing was for this individual when it came to focus. So we came up with some plans to help him overcome that, and I'm sure he'll do great. But scrolling on your phone, avoid that. Tip number 5, try and eat decent foods, right? You quit cannabis to feel better, presumably, probably mentally and physically. Eating super crappy for a prolonged period of time is going to make you feel crappy. It's going to ruin your sleep. It's going to take away from your mental clarity. It's going to take away from your self-esteem, your confidence, and your overall energy levels throughout the day. So don't make the mistake of putting down cannabis only to pick up a bag of McDonald's or a bunch of sugary food and sweets. Now, initially, I encourage people to have some grace on themselves because yes, the brain, when you first quit, it is going to be gravitating towards other cheap hits of dopamine. And if food hasn't been a major risk factor for you, if your phone hasn't been a major risk factor for you, and you notice an uptick in those behaviors since quitting cannabis, don't stress. Give yourself some grace, but be aware of it. Because the last thing I want to see happen to you is you quit consuming cannabis, you gain a bunch of weight because you became unhinged with the nutrition or whatever it may be, and you just quit and you wind up saying, what was the point? I don't feel any better than when I was consuming cannabis to begin with. I also recommend for nutrition, eat plain Jane foods when you first quit. A lot of people suffer with nausea because of the amount of endocannabinoid receptors in the GI system. And if nausea is a big thing for you, gagging, dry heaving, vomiting when you quit cannabis, small increments of food, plain Jane foods, plain rice with salt and butter, a plain piece of white toast with butter on it, maybe a little bit of jelly, a hard-boiled egg, chicken with almost little to no seasoning or marinades. Plain Jane foods. Tip number 6 is to avoid intense exercise. Now, I'm a massive fan of exercise. I think it's a great part of a person's recovery, but I would avoid intense exercise. Remember, when you first quit, you're going through detox and withdrawal. Your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, it's working overtime to pump out all of these toxins. And if you go do super intense weight training, you're overloading your body with other toxins and lactic acid as you break down your muscles. You're requiring a higher demand and putting a higher stress on your liver and your kidneys and your lymphatic tissues. And I don't want you to do that. Exercise is great. I just recommend in the beginning avoiding super intense exercise. So things like Pilates, a lighter yoga class, walking, maybe one of the most underrated forms of exercise and stress management. I walk daily to cope with work stress, family stress, whatever I have going on in my head. Think simple exercise when you first quit, especially too with cannabis, because when you first quit cannabis, remember, THC is stored in your fat cells. So if you go do super intense exercise and you're kind of inadvertently fasting because you don't have an appetite and you have nausea, you're going to be breaking down fat at a really rapid rate. And that could lead to some really intense withdrawal symptoms early on. Tip number 7, avoid overspending. So many times when people quit consuming a substance, they're inclined to reward themselves. Your work performance is going up. Your mental clarity is going up. You're seeing more money in your bank account. Why not go buy a new watch? Why not go buy this? Why not take the family on a $20,000 vacation, right? I tell people all the time, it's good to reward yourself. It's good to have rewards. It's good to have things that you work towards. But in the beginning, just take it a little bit easy. Because sometimes I'll see people over-reward themselves for something that quite frankly doesn't deserve a reward. I'm proud of people when they quit drugs. I'm proud of myself. But look, you got yourself into the situation. It's you has to get yourself out of this situation. And I don't know if I deserve a cookie every time I do something bad for myself. And then I later on decide to unscrew myself. So I'm a fan of rewards. Just be careful from the financial side of quitting things. Or if you're, shopping more because you're looking for that dopamine hit through shopping, the last thing I want to see you do is put yourself in financial strain, undergo a lot of financial stress, and then eventually choose to return to substance use because you feel like it's going to help you with that stress that you created. Tip number 8. Take sleep seriously. And I say this with a grain of salt because I know, and I experienced it myself, intense insomnia is one of the hallmark withdrawal symptom signs from most substances, especially cannabis. But I want you to do everything you can to take sleep seriously. Try and start to create some good sleep habits, some good sleep hygiene. Maybe avoid consuming caffeine. A lot of people, when they quit cannabis, they notice that their caffeine sensitivity goes way up. I experienced this. I was just talking to a gentleman the other day on the phone who was using a lot of pre-workouts, and we switched him over to a caffeine-free pump product versus a caffeinated pre-workout, just because we got to take sleep seriously. When you're sleep deprived, your ability to make rational decisions goes down. Your need to feel like you have to use willpower goes way up. It's been well documented. Important is your sleep hygiene, so don't neglect that. And, just limiting phone time could play a role in that. Tip number 9, don't try and do this on your own. Asking for help doesn't make you weak, but you want to make sure that you are getting help from the right places. I can't tell you how many times we've had clients enroll with us who have been to rehab, they've been through the 12-step groups, they've been through the therapy sessions, and they were just given very non-evidence-based, outdated, and quite frankly dangerous input when it comes to quitting substances. So if you're gonna ask for help, just make sure you're getting it from the right place, okay? But you don't have to do this on your own. And having help and having accountability and having support can go a tremendously long way. Why would you want to waste all of your mental bandwidth, all of your brain power, all of your energy, all of your focus on trying to solve this on your own when you could talk to someone who's maybe been through it before, who knows what they're doing, who could significantly speed up that process for you and save that mental bandwidth to put it into the aspects of your life that you actually want to focus on. Time with your wife, time with the kids, time with the family, time in your career, time making more money, whatever it is you want to be doing. If that's you and you need help, we have a science-backed method that has a 98% client success rate at helping people quit nicotine and cannabis in as little as 48 hours. This method is specifically for high-performance individuals, business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, high-level professionals, and we do it privately, comfortably, without disrupting your public life and image, and we can do it without relapse. Again, link in the pinned comment or video description. Lastly, tip number 10, and this is a simple one. Don't start quitting on a day that you've already consumed. 9 times out of 10, this just doesn't work for people. Start on a day where you wake up fresh, having not consumed that substance, because over the course of the evening, your body's already going to start detoxing and putting you into that detox just while you're asleep, right? And so don't start like randomly halfway throughout the day if you've already consumed. I usually find with clients, depending on your work schedule, although we work with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, they kind of make their own schedules. But if you're on a rigid work schedule, quitting on a Thursday isn't a bad idea, right? You quit Thursday, you power through work on Friday, that drug is still in your system, and then you're typically hitting your peak withdrawals somewhere between Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday you take off for the day, and then you're back at work on Tuesday like you didn't miss a beat. So just try and quit on an appropriate day, right? That would be my advice there. I'll give you a bonus tip as well too. I'll give you one last bonus tip. Make a decision and commit to it. Don't be wishy-washy on your decision when it comes to quit or not quit, okay? Every time you say, I'm gonna quit and then I fail, I'm gonna quit and then I don't, I'm gonna quit and then I delay it, you're slowly eroding away at your self-confidence and your self-esteem. And this can leach, this low confidence, this low self-esteem, losing faith in your word to yourself, can leach into your relationships. It can certainly negatively impact your career and your finances and your business life. And I don't want that to happen to you. So make up your mind and stick to it. Now, I'm not saying that you can't say, look, I'm going to stop and one day I'm going to moderate. That is very achievable for people. If you do this correctly, it's very achievable for people. Just make a decision and commit to it, right? Start to strengthen that muscle of discipline. Start to strengthen that muscle of tenacity and commitment. This is a beautiful opportunity for you to do just that. Now, if you enjoyed today's conversation, I want you to follow me into a live conversation that I had with someone who called, who was a self-reported helplessly addicted to cannabis. I put that video right here.